Hey there, Spirit fans. Today we're going to be traveling outside of Central Texas for the first time on Forecast. We're actually up in Missouri, which is where my wife was born and raised, and we're checking out a distillery just outside of Branson, Missouri, called Copper Run Distillery. They have a pretty neat story, and they actually dabble in quite a few different types of spirits, including whiskey, bourbon, moonshine, and rum. So, check it out and let me know what you think. You weren't the original owner, right?
Right. We read about this place in our co-op newsletter.
Okay.
So that was in 2011. Came out, really loved it. Actually loved all the products, and sort of became regulars out here. So got to know the original owner, and this actually is his family's farmland. Mm-hmm. That he carved out here for the distillery, but all this land around belongs to his family, his family farm. You know, he started out as a amateur moonshiner, if you will, right, for a winery out in California, and so he had some formal training, but then wanted to come back to his family roots and start the distillery, and so he did that. That was about 2007 or 8. A few years ago, he decided that he wanted to get out of it. So the employees came to me and said, hey, we love this business, we love the products, we'd really love to save the company. They have a barrel program like most distilleries do, but here it's a completely hands-on experience. So I came down, I did the mashing, I did everything myself. It's all hands-on. Wow. And I was absolutely fascinated with it, of course. People would always tell me, to be a successful business owner, you have to find something that you're really passionate about. And so I always wanted to own my own business, but couldn't find the thing that I was really passionate about. And I thought, this is something I could be passionate about. Craft distillery, the business, the products are on the upswing. There's a lot of growth in craft spirits, especially. And with distilleries, the biggest problem is because you're dealing with aged products, it takes a couple of years sometimes to get to market. So you have a big investment and you don't have any product for a couple of years. Cycle. Right. And which is why many craft distillers start out doing vodkas and gins because they don't have to age them. So that was 2 years ago, July, that we closed on it. So we've been owners a little over 2 years, but the business has been here about 12 years.
It's an interesting story behind the distillery and your involvement with it, your investment in it, into revitalizing and growing and keeping it alive. Is there anything that's new since you came on board 2 years ago? How do you see it growing?
We are focused on our core, the 7 spirits. We've really resisted getting into flavored things. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when Copper Run did a vodka, and so they've tried other things. But if you're a small business, you can't have too many products, especially when you're dealing with aged products. You have to manage an inventory, and we've got a huge investment in our inventory downstairs. We've got about 80 barrels of our aged products. If you just blow out the number of products you have, you're not going to have the quality, you're not going to have the focus, and you're not going to be able to manage the inventory. We haven't added any new products, with the one exception that the bourbon that was an experiment that the previous owner had started. Okay. But they had never brought to market. And so we've had a real focus on beefing up the inventory of our bourbon. I think we've released 3 barrels of bourbon in 2 years because we just didn't have the inventory. We're really putting a lot of energy into, building up the inventory of the bourbon so we can release that more frequently. And right now, the only place you can get it is here at the tasting room or at Top of the Rock. So Johnny Morris owns a Bass Pro, and he's got a really beautiful sort of resort with golf courses and restaurants and everything. That's the only place other than the tasting room you can get our bourbon. We are looking at doing like a rye whiskey. So again, I would say very traditional products, but maybe adding a couple of new things.
Is opening up to distribution something you'd ever consider?
So we do have distribution throughout the state of Missouri, but again, really looking for those retail partners that we think are really right for us.
Yeah, a good fit.
Exactly.
Right.
So we've got distribution in Missouri and Illinois. We just recently got distribution in Arkansas. Branson's a tourist area, so we get people from a pretty broad geographic area.
So how has the national pandemic and everything going on affected, your day-to-day business?
We don't have a very large footprint in what they call on-premise accounts. So on-premise is restaurants and bars, so places where you consume it on the premise. Most of our partners, like Total Wine, are what they call off-premise accounts, which means when you go there as a consumer, you go and you buy a bottle of Copper Run at Total Wine, you're buying it to take it home and consume it at home.
Right.
And of course, during COVID, people were doing that more and more. In other words, they're drinking at home instead of going to restaurants and bars. It really has not been much of a disruption, but we're still growing. The corn-based moonshine is something that we use as a substitute for almost any other clear. So we make margaritas with it. We make Bloody Marys with it. You can use it as a substitute for anything that you would put, again, vodka or tequila or something like that in.
It sounds pretty. Really, honestly, it's very versatile. Like it's very light and sweet on the mouth.
That's exactly right. The overproofing in is barley. It's something that really has its own. It really has its own flavor. It stands on its own. So if you're a traditional Scotch drinker and you go to the barley-based things, a lot of people like that.
Right.
So,
and then you've got small batch here, which is, you mentioned your favorite, right?
Yeah. So again, that's the same as the corn moonshine.
Very nice, very light.
Aged a year and a half.
Yeah.
We blend it. We'll take like 20 barrels of that and blend it so that we make sure that we have consistent color and flavor over all the batches.
Okay. We got the malted barley whiskey, which is more barley, and then we have the white, gold, and spiced rums.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about because rum is all sugar based, right?
If you're making rum on the Gulf Coast, you make it from sugar cane.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making it, people up in like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, if they want to try to make rum, they make it from beets.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't aware. Well, we're gonna have to take a trip to Michigan.
That's something. That's not something that is wide market appeal. But again, traditionally, you made it from what you had available.
Of course.
In this part of the country, sorghum is the raw material, and we actually purchase molasses. So we have suppliers who take the sorghum, make molasses, and that's our source material. So again, it's very traditional for this part of the country. All 3 of our rums are exactly the same formula. The overproof is just not aged. That's the only difference. The gold rum is basically the same raw material, except it's aged in a barrel, again, for about a year and a half. The spiced rum is the gold rum infused with a spice packing.
And then the last one, which actually isn't on here, but I know it's part of it, is I'm assuming a newer addition was the the 3-year?
The 3-year bourbon,
yeah.
Right. So that's a little bit different. Again, very traditional. Bourbon by law has to be at least 50% corn.
Mm-hmm.
it has to be aged in a virgin oak barrel.
Right.
We're very fortunate here in Missouri. We buy our barrels locally. That's a single barrel. We don't blend it. So every one is unique, you know. So again, that's our third release.
I've actually enjoyed pretty much all of them. The overproof moonshine is a little hard.
That is, I will tell you, that's for me is the one thing that I don't gravitate to. But but there are people who are passionate about it, but
there's something to that, right? You have something
for everybody, right?
You know,
that's exactly right.
That's good to have, and you have a pretty heavy list of different cocktails, which I'm sure play to all the strengths,
right?
Which is nice.
We try to highlight every one of our spirits, right? You know, with a cocktail.
When it comes to, you know, your favorite pour, what do you typically gravitate towards?
I bought this company because I loved the small batch whiskey. Mm-hmm. That's my go-to drink, whether I'm at home or if I'm out. If I'm somewhere where I can get it, that's what I drink. When I come here, that's what I drink. I love it, and again, I wouldn't have bought the company if I didn't. A couple weeks ago, we went to visit my son who lives in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. But we drove down there, and we drive through. You drive through Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi, and we like to stop it. We like to seek out craft distilleries, mm-hmm. Kind of like you do. But we like to go there, meet the people, and just taste whatever they have. When I travel, I like to seek out what are those unique products, mm-hmm. In whatever part of the country I'm visiting. My go-to is, trying a whiskey that I haven't tried before, that's made by somebody who's a real craftsman, that is a craftsman, because he and his buddy are doing it, in a 1,000 square foot, tin shack, and and that's what I love. That's what I love doing.
Grassroots. Well, you heard it here. Keith loved this whiskey so much, he decided to buy the distillery.
That's right.
Going. So,
that's exactly.
Thanks so much, Keith. I really appreciate you spending time.
I loved it. I love talking to you, and I look forward to seeing the video online.
Well, hopefully we do you justice, and hopefully it brings you more cocktail.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I really hope you learned something and enjoyed Copper Run Distillery. I really appreciate Keith taking some time to talk with me today, and honestly, I really admire what him and his wife decided to do to save the distillery. I just wanted to put a plug in there again for their barrel program for anybody in the Branson area that may be interested in frequenting the distillery, and anybody that just travels to that area frequently. Definitely worth looking into. Get your hands dirty, actually learn the secrets of handcrafted whiskey, and get in there and do the process yourself from the beginning to the end and create your own barrel of whiskey. If I lived closer and I traveled to Missouri more frequently, I'd definitely be doing this. And if you're just looking to try some of their spirits or maybe get a bottle and bring it home yourself, check out the distillery or check out anywhere where you can get these spirits. If you're just passing through and want to check out the distillery, definitely do that. Take some time to tour the full facility and try some of these historic spirits. And that actually reminds me, fun fact I found out after visiting the distillery is that Copper Run was the first legal distillery in the Ozark Mountains after Prohibition ended in 1933. So a little bit of unique historic trivia there for you. Now on to some forecast business. I did want to add that we do, as I mentioned a couple episodes ago, we have a sponsor now. Wood & Whiskey, which is a small family-owned business in upstate New York, not far from where I grew up actually. They are sponsoring Pourcast and are allowing the discount code Pourcast for any one of their products. A small family business that focuses on handcrafted woodwork, including cutting boards, storage boxes, wine and whiskey racks, and even a few of these items that I purchased myself to support their business. This is a nice clock to remind you that it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. And I also was able to get myself one of these uniquely crafted whiskey display boxes. And what we have here, hint hint for any of you following us regularly, is our Copper Run small batch rum. I'm really excited to say that this is going to be our next giveaway. For those of you that have been following us and saw that we had a giveaway on Instagram recently, our first giveaway for 200 followers. When we get to 500 followers, we will be giving away this bottle of small batch rum from Copper Run Distillery. So with that said, I wanted to thank everyone for following and subscribing, and keep pushing out there. We really want to keep growing this channel to shed awareness of these craft businesses that are innovating and creating those spirits and beers and wines and craft beverages that we love day to day. As I mentioned before, this channel is all about growing and exploring different palates, trying new things, and of course supporting local craft businesses. Oh, by the way, I wanted to give a shout out to Jolene Jernigan and Samantha Brown and thank them for participating in our first giveaway. I really look forward to hitting our next milestone as a channel. So give us a follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel to check out these episodes as they come out, and keep an eye out for the next giveaway. And as always, keep pouring.